Mental disorders are affecting more and more daily. Disorders such as ADHD, bipolar, and autism are all within the top 10 commonly diagnosed disorders. This, I want to persuade you guys on, is because this is affecting our youth and our education. In my belief, I don't believe schools and many of these disorders are properly diagnosed or treated. ADHD is affecting our very youth, for it's diagnosed between the ages of 6 and 7 years old. And some of the symptoms include, for the inattention, are that they make careless mistakes and often make careless mistakes in schoolwork. They often avoid things that have a lot of mental effort and often are easily distracted. Hyperactivity are often fidgets when expected to sit still and often has trouble playing with others quietly. Now, these are all describing a typical 6 or 7 year old child. What child is going to stay still in a class? What child's going to sit there and listen as the teacher is talking to them? Many have a short attention span, and they have to have all these symptoms, have 6 of these symptoms within each other. And there's a long list of other symptoms, but they have to be affected and impair them in 2 or more settings. A psychiatrist won't get all these settings, all the details. They'll simply watch the child, figure out details off of what the teacher notes, or what other students notes, or what parents note. Now, whenever countering this issue, people are going to only remember the bad. They don't remember what good happens with the child. They remember the bad. It's a distinct memory effect. And these are examples. Now, second is bipolar, and bipolar is described as an intense emotional state. So there's a manic and depressive state. The manic state is very high, overly happy feeling. They often feel wired. They talk fast, and their thoughts are always jumping back and forth. They're easily distracted and restless. So manic part of bipolar can be easily misdiagnosed as ADHD or another disorder that causes these similar symptoms. The depressive state is they feel empty and worried. There's a loss of activity with themselves, and they feel slowed down and they're restless. So this is describing depression. So if someone were to be diagnosed, they would get mixed and had ADHD along with bipolar. They could be misdiagnosed and miss the bipolar. If they had OCD, they would be misdiagnosed with and not being properly treated. This is a very common issue with other disorders because the DSM-4 has a lot of loosely defined definitions and symptoms of these disorders. The final one, which is the most controversial one, is autism, and is very controversial only due to the fact that there's been a giant growth of diagnosis between for autism before the DSM-4 came out and after. According to the CDC, the growth of autism diagnosis has gone from 1 in every 2,000 to 5,000 children to every 100 children has autism. That is a large jump. So the question is, why? This misdiagnosis, or is it simply because we actually have this issue growing? What child is going to make poor eye contact, appear to their peers? Right. They're unaware of others' feelings. Most young children don't fully aware of what their children is. They also repeat words. The child's telling you a story, they're trying to process through it. They're not going to remember everything, and there's a lot of repetition within this. There's repetitive motions that doesn't stand directions. It's easy to get confused with directions, especially with a young child. Now, another big issue, and my main point of being persuading you guys into believing this misdiagnosis, is schools. They have a big say in what children do. There are a lot of stories and issues of how schools impose the belief of what their children parents' children do not fit the social norm, and if they're a distraction in the class, the teacher can't handle, they're going to bring it up to the parent. And as a parent, you're being questioned that your child doesn't have what a normal child has. You're worried, you want this to be fixed. You're going to take them to the doctor and try to push for a cure when there might not be. This brings up the controversy topic of antibiotics. A lot of parents and doctors are being misprescribing antibiotics, which is causing superbugs. Um, so with these misdiagnoses, you have kids according to the National Institute of Mental Health, that Adderall is being approved by the FDA to be prescribed at age 3 and older. Adderall for a 3-year-old does not seem right. It seems too young to be taking Adderall at the age of 3. A lot of these disorders, especially with ADHD and bipolar and autism, well, ADHD and bipolar, they are hormonal diseases. And as you grow up, your hormones are ever changing. You cannot put a child on different forms of medications that affect main forms of hormones, like serotonin with Adderall. It stops the reuptake. According, in conclusion, many disorders are being misdiagnosed because of these loosely defined diseases and disorders, and that schools are pushing that of this new form of social norm. They're setting a bar of how children should be acting that children normally don't act in that way. And with both of these two, a lot of mental disorders are being misdiagnosed.